When you need to build up your team to handle the growing chaos at work, use Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It gives your job post the boost it needs to be seen and helps reach people with the right skills, certifications, and more. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hiring hero? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
Reverend A.R. Bernard, Rabbi Joseph Potasnik, the Rev and the Rabbi.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
Reverend, we are privileged once again to have a friend, Mark Levine, the 46th Controller of the City of New York. Although I think he would admit that he's the controller in the city. When he gets home at night, his wife becomes the controller. So, you know, they share that title, different responsibilities, but the same title. Mark, always great having you with us.
I'm definitely not king of the castle.
Thank you.
Great to be back with you, Reverend and Rabbi.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, there's much to discuss. Let me ask you, and I don't understand the mentality, the disdain for people who are affluent, taunting people who have made it. How does that benefit the city of New York when many of these people have been great donors to a host of causes in the city, have employed people? Their names are on buildings and hospitals, universities. What do we gain by doing stuff like that?
Well, look, as you know, Rabbi, we do have enormous inequality in society, and it's growing. And people, I think, rightly are upset and worried about that, especially when people with money can accumulate political power. So I think there are problems there that we as a society have to address.
Right.
I feel like the goal should be to eliminate poverty, and that, if, for example, in New York City, if we had all the wealthy people leave, we would not be better off. We would simply have lower tax base that would ultimately mean less money for schools and parks and social programs. So I think my goal is to have the city thrive, to have it be diverse economically, from people who are working class up to yes, including people who are wealthy, because that's important to our economy. And in the process, have a government which helps create opportunity for everybody so that we can start to tackle inequality. That's my view.
That's a healthy approach. Yeah. Rev?
No, I just love the idea that you're taking that kind of approach, because there is attack on approaches that seek to bring that kind of equity. Do you get pushback?
Oh, I get hit left, right, and center. If you are unfortunate enough to spend any time on social media, you will see it. But look, I think there's an important place for the perspective that says it's urgent that we support people who are struggling in the city, people who are struggling to pay rent, people who are struggling to provide for their families, and also acknowledging that to do that, we need a strong economy in New York City, that those things go hand in hand, because a strong economy throws off enough tax revenue, generates enough tax revenue to actually invest in people, invest in schools and after-school programs and job training and public health programs and all the things that we need to have more equity in society. So for me, those things go hand in hand. And sure, there's people who on one side only want to focus on economic growth, and there's people on the other side who I think don't care enough about economic growth and only want to focus on investing in programs. And I think that we need both.
So that requires a very mature conversation of people sitting down talking to both sides or bringing them together and saying, look, the goal is the same. We want New York City to be an outstanding city that has opportunities for everyone. How we get there, we can differ with, but let's not demean the other person. And I think
you guys will have to tell me if that was how the culture was when you guys were coming up. But man, today it just feels like the demonization, the polarization, and the way we tear people down for having views that are only slightly different from ours. It is so unhealthy for society, and it's chasing good people out of politics, and it's making it more difficult to solve problems. And look, I am all for intense policy disagreements. These are high stakes issues. They're complicated. We shouldn't agree on everything,
Right.
but we should go after ideas and not people.
Mm-hmm.
And the way we're tearing people down simply for disagreeing with us, it's really, really, really disappointing.
Social media doesn't help.
Yeah,
Terrible.
affordability in New York City is not simply an economic issue. It's structural, right? It's a structural question. Who gets to live in the city? Who can remain in it? And what kind of social diversity and civic life the city can sustain over time? Housing seems to be the central pressure point. How do you respond to that?
Well, this is the worst affordability crisis New York City's ever faced, and it is driven by housing. Rents are out of control. The median rent now in Manhattan is well over $5,000 a month. This is unprecedented. It's only slightly better in the other boroughs. And it's at this point not just pushing out low-income families, it's pushing out a bus driver or a social worker or a nurse who cannot afford those salaries, certainly not if they have a child or two. It's also, by the way, probably contributing to our falling birth rate, et cetera. So this has terrible implications for the future of the city. And I think what you said, or at least implied, Rev, is right, that this is, when you said it was structural, this is partly the result of policies that, among other things, have meant we haven't built a lot of housing in New York City. And, when you have a shortage of something and there's a lot of demand, the price goes up. And to get out of it, we can also have better policies. We can make it easier to build. And I'd say on that, there's a little bit of good news, because over the last year or two, we actually really have brought about some major changes to the rules for where you can build, the zoning code. You probably remember this legislation called City of Yes that updated the zoning code to make it easier to build.
Right.
And there were some questions on the ballot last November, you might remember, that also will help make it easier to update zoning. And so we actually now have the potential to build a lot more. What is missing now is financing to do that. And I think we might have spoken about this briefly when I was on last time, but if you see a vacant lot in your neighborhood and you hear, oh yeah, they're going to build affordable housing there, and you see it stay vacant for a year and 2 years and 3 years and 4 years, and you wonder why is it taking so long? It's probably because they're waiting for financing. We just don't have enough, and it kills projects. And so my office is doing something about it. We announced that we're going to invest $4 billion in city pension money in building and preserving housing all over New York City. This will be a game change, because it's going to help solve what is, I believe, the biggest problem now, which is lack of financing in New York City.
Wow.
For housing.
And you're the city controller. What is the relationship with the state? Because it's not just the city. The state and the city have to work together around affordable housing. We have a major project that we've been working on, and it took us 8 years just to get all the approvals. But there has to be that cooperation, correct?
Yes. Well, first of all, Rev, the fact that it took you 8 years to get the approvals is itself a
That's
scandal.
another problem. Yeah.
And this really it's killing the housing industry in New York. The time and cost just of getting approvals, and that's something else we have to fix as well. I have a great partner in the state comptroller, Tom DiNapoli, who is a friend and doing a great job and cares deeply about financing affordable housing. Did you two know, by the way, that he's a regular Sunday listener of this show?
Yes.
Now you know.
Yeah.
And
we got it.
And we tell him that Mark Levine, did you know that Mark Levine is a regular Sunday listener of this show?
There you
So
go.
don't make us look good on
On
this
the
one,
air.
Mark.
On the air. Controller, we're going to have to. Yeah, we're going to have to take a break. But when we come back, I'd like to circle back around what you said. It's about affordability, because it's workforce sustainability. We're talking about essential workers like teachers, nurses, transit workers, sanitation staff, hospital employees who can't afford, who are struggling to live in the city. So we're talking about middle class affordability. When we come back, we've got to take a break. We'll be back with more of the Rev and the Rabbi right here on Red Apple Radio Networks.
Reverend A.R. Bernard, Rabbi Joseph Potasnik, the Rev and the Rabbi. Where faith matters, the Rev and the Rabbi.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
And we're talking to the 46th Controller of the City of New York, the Honorable Mark Levine. Rev, you have a question for me?
Yes. Yeah. An important point, because even when I think about our project, we're doing AMIs that go up to $100,000 a year in annual household income. AMI means, area median income, but the household income ranges. So when we think about affordable housing, we usually think about, poor and working class, low income, but we're talking about middle income workforce who are struggling to pay the rent. And if they try to get something outside of the city, it's still the commute. It affects the quality of life. So respond to the idea that we have essential workers now who are struggling to live near their workplaces here in the city.
Yeah, Reverend, we need to support people who are at every level of the income ladder. Certainly someone making a minimum wage is struggling and in danger of homelessness. And so we need affordable housing that works for them. But it's not only the lowest income families anymore, because housing's just gotten so insanely expensive that even a family making $100,000 a year, especially if they have a kid or two, they can't afford market rate housing in New York City, or certainly not in most neighborhoods. And we're losing those families. They're leaving. It's a very common pattern now that New Yorkers, when they hit their 30s, if they have kids, they leave the city. And it's in part because of the impossibility of finding housing they can afford. So you are referencing what is known as workforce housing, which is it's still considered affordable because it has income targets and it has some subsidy usually from the city or the state. But it is a place where a bus driver or a social worker or a nurse or a teacher can afford to live. A lot of times what happens to folks at those levels of incomes is they feel like they're stuck in what they call the donut hole, which is they look at affordable housing online and they make too much for that. And then they look at market rate apartments and they don't make enough to afford those.
Enough of that.
And so they feel like they're just stuck in the middle or the donut hole. And what you're doing in your project, which sounds wonderful, is serving those people who are getting left out. And we need more projects like that. And we're very deliberate in making sure we focus on those kinds of projects. We have some in the pipeline that are targeted towards workers.
Somebody was talking to me about generational subsidies, that now you have this young generation, talk about $5,000 plus for an apartment. Single person can't afford to live there, has to get a subsidy. Parents, other family members, roommates, right? So it goes beyond, that particular group. But to me, what you're saying and what Rev has mentioned, this is a perfect conversation to have with people, who have made it and say, look, we want to keep this workforce in the city. This benefits all of us. Well, we don't have police, fire, all of the, supportive services here. How do we make it as a city? That's a conversation rather than disdain for those who have made it. Yeah.
Absolutely. This is economic development, right? You need your staff, your workers, your employees to live here. If you run a restaurant in the West Village and the only housing your employees can afford is on Long Island or Pennsylvania, you got a problem for your business. Yeah. Right. Also true if you're running JP Morgan Chase, right? You need a place for workers at all income levels to be able to live. And so affordability is also in part economic development.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a policy tension, controller, between growth versus access, because you want to ensure growth, but you want to ensure that the growth doesn't unintentionally narrow access to the city because you can't afford to live here. Um, Tell us about navigating that tension.
I mean, this has been the cycle that's kind of plagued New York City for generations. Where if we're doing well economically and growing, then housing gets too expensive.
Yeah.
The alternative is the 1970s, where we have an economic bust, and yeah, it gets more affordable. But we solved the affordability crisis in the 70s, but we don't want that trade off. The
We
only
lose the quality
way
of
you
life. Yeah.
can Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. The only way you can solve this conundrum and have growth and a prosperous economy without it being an affordability disaster is if you are adding supply to housing. And
Yeah.
if you look at like the early parts of the 20th century in New York City, there are single years where we added 100,000 apartments, which sounds
Hmm.
remarkable. Now it's more like 25,000 apartments a year, maybe 6,500, which are affordable. And that pace is not going to do it. We probably need 500,000 new homes in New York City. If you look at just the population and the demand and how many young people need housing and et cetera.
Hmm.
So, we could do that in a decade if we were building 50,000 units a year. So if we doubled the pace, to me, that
Right.
should be the
Right.
goal. That if we can do that, then we can break out of this cycle. We can be prosperous as a city, and we can make the city safer and improve quality of life. But there'll be new housing that will take some pressure off the rents. That is the only way forward to me that avoids the trap that we've been caught in the past.
Mr. Controller, I want
Yeah.
to ask you the budget, pass a budget. And you know that in passage of budgets, there's some gimmickry, there's some real serious approaches. Talk about both. Talk about some of the gimmicks that are often used, not just in this administration, but over the years, historically, these one-shot measures that really don't change the dynamic.
Right. Look, this is a tough year for the budget. It's the toughest budget year we have faced since the Great Recession, which is pretty surprising because the economy in New York City is still growing. There's challenges we can talk about, but in many ways, the city's booming. And to have a budget challenge in a booming economy means something is wrong. And we have a structural problem in New York City's budget, which is very simple. We spend more than we bring in. Recurring expenses exceed recurring income in New York. And that's got us in a pretty big hole. We are in better shape than we were in January. When I got into this job of comptroller, it sounded the alarm and announced that we were facing a $12 billion deficit. A few things have happened to help. One is that the economy has done so well. Wall Street had its best bonus season on record that that chopped several billion off the gap. A reminder that we do need a strong economy to make all this work. Also,
Right.
we got a lot of help from Albany. Credit to the governor and the state assembly and state senate, and also credit to the mayor for fighting for that. But we got billions in help from Albany. Now, this gets a little controversial, but have you heard about the refinancing of the pension that we're going to do? This is a piece of the puzzle where it's sort of like a mortgage where you're a few years out from paying it off. So, maybe you have a 30-year mortgage and you're in year 23, and then you kind of refinance to extend it out 5 more years, and so you lower your payment. Well, that's going to happen now with the pension that was in the state budget, and so that's going to throw off probably $2 billion more in cash every year for the city. Now, I would put that in the category, Rabbi, of one shot.
Right.
You can do that once, but and by the way, it was made possible again because Wall Street has done so well over the last decade that we were overfunded slightly, or we were well enough funded. All this is good. Also, the mayor has identified goals to find savings in the budget, or efficiencies, I think would be the word, and we support that. We want to make sure those actually happen. Some of them haven't been specified, but good for the mayor for putting those goals out there. But then there's the last piece you referred to, Rabbi, which is the one shot. And there's also a few billion of measures in there that you can do once they're sort of an accounting move, but then you can't do them again next year. And some of them get very technical, but we have a pool of money, we call it the labor reserve, that is used for negotiating contracts. And they're going to take some money out of that, which you can do once and it's probably justified, but then you can't do it next year. Some of the state aid we got is not recurring, so it helps us this year. But again, it's a one shot.
Right.
And the problem then is that you're just kicking the can into next year. And we have a very big can waiting for us next year. We have a $7 billion gap next year, going up to $10 billion by 2030. So we're going to be right. I'm going to be on this show in early 2027, and we're going to have exactly the same conversation about a massive deficit and do we need to raise taxes to close it. And by the way, guys, this doesn't even deal with the fact that we could have a recession. I mean, I hope we don't. I hope we have another great year in the economy. But, you know, with the crazy tariffs and the war in Iran and the price of oil and all of those problems, I think we should all be a little bit cautious. Then there's the concern about AI and could it disrupt the economy.
Right.
So to me, we should be actually trying to stockpile money in our reserves right now, kind of the opposite of a one shot. We should be taking measures to prepare for tough days ahead. And we're not doing that yet in the budget. Now, it's not due till June 30th, so it ain't over yet. And so I'm going to be pushing very hard.
We come to the end of the program. I just want to say, and I know the Rev is shy, Mr. Controller. Would you have those 2 extra tickets for the Knicks game? That, you know, because you said you always want to help us out in any way you can and be there for us. You know, just
unfortunately, it's on Shabbat, Rabbi. So me and the Rev are going to go. But
good defense. You want to talk about affordability of those tickets? That's a whole nother conversation.
That's a whole other conversation.
By the way, Rev, do you know?
Thank you for being on the program.
Rev, do you know the controller majored in physics when he was in college?
Oh boy.
That's the one subject we all avoided. Stay away from physics. Wow, that's great. All right. Thank you.
Thank you for being on the program. And thank you, our listeners, for joining us on another Sunday this day with the Israel Parade, a celebration of a people and a journey. And before I close, Rabbi, I got to give a shout out. My granddaughter, Ashley, graduated from law school. I was proud to be there with her. And it happened to be
Congratulations.
Truro Law School. A great school.
Yep.
Right, I remember.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, we need more lawyers. That's great.
We need more lawyers. And thank you.
All right, great.
And we need more listeners. So thank you for tuning in. Till next time, right here on Red Apple Radio Networks, the Rev and the Rabbi. God bless.